Yeah. So I was asked to moderate our table, and the question was, how will we integrate artificial intelligence, so AI, into the chartered accountancy profession now, in 5 years, and then in 10 years? And basically, we kind of discussed the fact that it is going to bring a huge amount of transformative changes, and it's already doing so. And it's going to really change the way that the chartered accountancy profession is going to sort of look going forward. The first thing that we sort of discussed was the automation of routine tasks, which I think most of you are seeing something of already. So things like AI can automate repetitive tasks such as data entry, transaction processing, compliance checks, and so on. And so it'll take away quite a lot of the mundanity, perhaps, of the role. So it's allowing chartered accountants to focus on the more strategic aspects of the role. However, one of the people on our table was saying that's all well and fine, but it'll also perhaps mean that the younger chartered accountants coming through will miss out a great big chunk of the learning. And so how are we going to bridge that knowledge gap? So that was something that sort of we couldn't actually really answer. The other thing that we thought about was enhanced data analysis and decision making, and how AI would be able to analyse large data sets much more swiftly and be able to identify trends and patterns and anomalies that might have been missed actually by humans. And so that would enhance the ability of accountants to provide a much more sort of deep insight and make perhaps more informed decisions. And also we were talking about sort of fraud, detection and risk management, and there was a thought that perhaps AI systems might be able to monitor transactions more in real time. And so perhaps eventually we'd be able to sort of flag things like potential fraud. But again, it would probably need chartered accountants to actually teach the AI to sort of look for stuff like that. But then we sort of thought more about the role of the chartered accountant going forward, and actually yesterday we held a think tank, so a Global Future Leaders think tank, and Ross was there, as was Jessica and a couple of other people in the room. And we talk about the attractiveness of the profession, and that's fine, but if AI is going to do all these things, how are we going to reassure the next generation that actually it is worth going through the pain and the expense and the heartache of doing the chartered accountants exams if perhaps they don't have a purposeful job at the end of it? So then we were thinking about, well, what would chartered accountancy look like? And we sort of came up with the idea of it being a much more sort of strategic and advisory role. So as AI obviously handles a lot more of the routine and analytical tasks, we thought that sort of chartered accountants would transition to roles that sort of really emphasise strategic advisory, and they would focus then on interpreting AI-driven insights to gain or to guide really business strategies and decision making, for example. And of course, they will continue to be ethical guardians, because obviously AI will handle those sensitive financial data, but chartered accountants will play a really integral role in ensuring those ethical standards and data integrity are maintained and upheld. And they'll also oversee the ethical implementation of AI in financial processes. And I think that was something else that we also discussed a little bit more in depth, was the piece around trust and the fact that chartered accountants are seen as trusted in business and in wider society, and it'll be crucial to uphold that trust and make sure that AI is trained in a way that will mitigate any damage to reputation. The other thing that we sort of were thinking about was skills development, and it would be things around sort of the knowledge in AI ethics and data governance, regulatory compliance, and so on. But then also we thought about the fact that chartered accountants must also then be seen as innovators and change makers. And they'll need to lead the adoption and integration of AI technologies within the organisations and drive innovation and manage change. And so, as a result of that, they'll help design and implement AI strategies that align with business goals. So then when you look at the Chartered Accountancy qualification, then it might need to evolve such that you're almost merging technology in with the CA, the existing Chartered Accountancy qualification, so that you have that well-rounded individual. And so, skills in change management, project management, and also this really important grasp on emerging technologies would be key, we felt. But also then there is that piece around education and training. And so experienced chartered accountants, perhaps sort of our generation, would then be responsible for educating and training the next generation of accountants in using AI tools and adapting to sort of tech-driven environments. Even though they would probably be more au fait with it, it would be our generation probably that would need to train AI in the first place to ensure that it is capable of doing the job properly. And then obviously, you would remain as risk and compliance experts. But also AI would introduce new types of risk, including cybersecurity threats. So chartered accountants would need to specialise in managing those risks and ensuring compliance with evolving regulation and so on. So, there is that idea that you might need to sort of improve expertise in cybersecurity risk management and also evolve those regulatory frameworks and so on as well. So I think really, we concluded that while AI will automate many traditional accounting tasks, chartered accountants will need to evolve in roles that sort of move more to strategic insight, ethical oversight, innovation, leadership, and specialised expertise. And the only way that you can do that is really to embrace and learn the technological advancements and so on, because obviously AI is going to augment your landscape going forward. So that was pretty much it in a nutshell.
Thank you, Antje. That was a great setup for Daniel's presentation. It's just that Daniel isn't going next.
Sorry.
So we a couple. Any questions or thoughts? Take a couple before we move on.
This is sort of a general question for all the tables. The CPA exam has recently changed, and one of the papers now, there are 3 different tracks. So you could be a tax track, I think audit track, I've forgotten what the third one is. Technology. I don't believe that's happening with any of the chartered accountants. They still have an examination which is, you need to be a generalist, you need to know everything. I'm just wondering how people react to that change in the US and whether it should be reflected also in the CA world.
It should, and I think specialisation is coming. It's just going to take a while to get there. But I guess I'm going to answer that. So if you think about all our different institutes, they've all got different people focused on AI, right? We did a webinar on the 30th, which Chris participated in, and Janny, who isn't here today, on AI and accountants. And we had the head of technology from ICAW participating. They have a task force that kicked off relatively recently that's focused on what does this mean for accounting. So it's happening. It's just I'm going to say what Chris says to it, and Chris knows what I'm going to say here. It's just not happening fast enough.
But should it be part of the basic examination, or should it be a supplementary specialization?
Good question. Good question. I know what I think, but I mean, I'd love our institutes to answer that, but they're not here. So let's park that bit for now. But no, I think it's good because if our profession doesn't change, it will cease to exist in its current form. It will cease to exist. Any thoughts? Comments? All great, because we're on time to move on now. So next up, we're going to translate to resilience revisited. For those of you who were here last year, it's a different presentation.